Okay, for our Stump the Chump session, we have Zachary Burns sent in the first question. Who all do we have in for our Stump the Chump? Hasso, are you out there? Looks like you're muted, Hasso.
Hey, Kelvin.
Awesome. Hey there. Jose, are you out there?
He just sent an email. He's putting out a fire, so he might either be late or not make it.
Not a problem. How about Bruce Larson? He wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not.
Yeah, I don't see him.
Okay, Graham, are you out there?
Graham is muted.
Graham? I'm not sure what it is. It just shows telephone for him, but it doesn't say if it's muted or not. I mean, normally muted is red, green is you're able to talk. He's got a telephone.
It shows he's not connected.
Okay, and then Fred, you're out there, and hey, I'm out here also. So we can go ahead and get started here. Zach Burns turned around and sent in our first question for the day. Zach's using Epicor 7. And he had grandiose plans of using the AR inventory modules and other business homegrown systems. They really only went with AP and GL, just cutting paper checks and AP payments. Things are going fine, and they're wondering about going from Epicor 7 all the way up to ERP 10. It's also the question, I think we all have asked this question, if it's not broke, you don't fix it, right? Hasso, what would you say to someone looking, do you upgrade Epicor?
Tough question. It depends, I guess, what the business goals are. If you ask me, I know plenty of people who are still on Vantage and they have 25 to 35 employees and they're content. They're not chasing sales. They're just gonna stay put and they don't have to pay maintenance on it because they're not upgrading. They're used to all the bugs and workarounds. So I guess it depends on what the business goals are.
I kind of do the same thing. I'm like, if you can't tell me what features you want in the new software or what features in the new software are going to benefit your business, you haven't done your due diligence to look, is the upgrade going to be worth the process? Yep. So you need to look at the new version of the software, look at the new features and the modules that you currently own and say, hey, are any of these features in the new software going to be things that are going to impact you or your users and make life better? If you can't tell me that you've looked at the new software and you have some things that you really want out of it, you shouldn't be upgrading. Upgrading for the sake of just running people through the meat grinder is never fun.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's if you've been on one system for 20 years, you really actually should do a software selection. So to limit yourself just to Epicor, I don't think is a good idea. Even if you do end up picking Epicor at the end of it, you need to do a full requirements analysis. And if you don't have the wherewithal and there's no motivation in the business to do that, then you should just stay where you are. The only caveat I would say on that old infrastructure would be if you're running like server Windows 2000 or whatever, like very old OS that has no support, maybe your database has got no support, that's probably your bigger issue because that's a huge security issue at this point. If it was 5 years ago, you'd probably get away with it. There's just more and more nasty crap that someone will come in with a memory stick or laptop and plug it into your network and poof, you've got problems. So that would be the only caveat I would see on the old setup.
Okay. Fred, are you able to unmute the people that posted the questions while we're going through them by chance?
Yeah, if they're still online,
I'd
I
like to
can.
make sure, Zach, if you have a question or if we're not answering the question, if you can go ahead and trying to find out how to unmute you there, Zach.
Zach is self-muted right now. So
Okay, so
Zachary, if you've got follow-up to that question, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask it. And in the chat, he says we answered it, so we're good.
awesome. Our next question came in from David Height. How do you add the bin location to the job traveler report and keep the performance reasonable? When they add the bin location, it adds significant time to load the job traveler. Where are you in the list here, David?
So I looked
I
at
sent
that
an
question.
unmute.
So I looked at that question and I just, it's lacking a little bit more information because I don't know, are they trying to get the bin location for job materials, for just the job head? Are they just talking about the staging bin number that actually exists on the job material?
Are you there, David? Are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, to handle this, I would say you're going to have to look at how you're joining the traveler report to the part bin table to pull back that location information. And you want to make sure that you're joining on as many of the indexes on that table as possible. As long as you're joining on the company, the plant, and the part number, you should be doing good. If you guys are multiple warehouses within your plant, you may want to turn around and limit only certain warehouses be shown as well. Then when the report runs, it should only pull back those few records, not the whole table for every time you join it. You want to make sure you join the table to the report correctly, and you can do that in the report data definition, or do that via an ODBC, or somehow when you're going in directly via SQL back to the database.
Yep, that sounds pretty much
David?
reasonable.
Okay.
Because I think most people, when they join, they do a company and is it just company and part number, but they forget that there's also a warehouse code and of course a plant.
Yep.
Sometimes.
And if you don't narrow it down, you're looking at everything.
Yep.
Okay, our next question came in from Gordy. Are you out there, Gordy? And Gordy was nice enough to turn around and send a Word document along with this question. So this is going to be a little bit longer here.
And Gordy should be unmuted, or he can unmute himself now.
Okay, this is kind of weird. We're hitting 3 for 3 where people aren't able to pop in. Gordy, are you still out there?
Well, it also shows he's not got this in the foreground, so.
Wow, I didn't know you got that much info. Melody, you want to go ahead and grab him? She's also on the call and she's sitting in his office or possibly working from home on a Friday.
Melody, you are unmuted as well if you know this question.
I do.
So when the form opens, it's going to the wrong tab?
It's been an issue for a while, Epicor. We've put the call in a couple times, more for fun than anything. They indicate because we have personalizations on top of customized form that this is what's causing the occurrence. Basically, what's happening, instead of opening, whether it be customer tracker, part tracker, job tracker, whatever, instead of opening on the detail tab, it will open on some obscure tab that nobody ever uses. And there is no way you could try saving layouts, you can try doing whatever. And for the next couple of times that you launch it, it may open correctly. And then again, it's going to open in some strange, obscure land.
Okay, so are you, and your example was the
Well, I'm not sure
quote
what
entry
he put
screen?
together. Is that the only one? It looks like he might have done all of them, just from looking at his note on it.
So
What
he's
does?
having multiples of this occurrence. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
just on one or two forms.
exactly. It's like all the forms, and I personally experience it more on trackers than anything. I've come to ignore it, but Epicor has said that anytime that you've got a personalization on top of a customization, it can occur.
And which version are you on?
10.2.500,
Okay.
but it's been happening since 10.1 maybe.
And Tracy and Sharon have also expressed this, and Scott Williams said if you run in developer mode to test the default screen, does that help?
Now, actually, I'm going to turn around and ask Hasso. Can you go ahead and share can I share my screen with you, Hasso?
Yeah, is that your screen in front?
Yep, I'm going to go ahead and open the Epicor in developer mode here.
And it's kind of like your car making that noise. You take it to the mechanic and it never makes it, you know? So it's not every time, it's 90% of the time that it will open obscurely.
So let's create a layer and just a dummy layer, and then personalize as well, and then we'll.
I gave you drawing when I meant to give you keyboard and mouse here. Because I was going to let you have fun with this more than me.
Oh.
We do have a suggestion from Gene Billett. If you're launching the form from a favorite, try deleting the favorite and re-adding it from the main menu.
Yeah, I wish it was that easy. I did think he was doing that, Gordy. I don't use the favorites, so I operate everything I operate totally off the menu. So, and it does happen to me as well. It doesn't seem to happen to me as frequently.
So I did see that maybe once in a blue moon, and just I reopen the form or restart Epicor and it goes away. I guess I never looked into it. I just thought it was something with my client. On
Nope.
some screens, if you open the engineering workbench, I think it always under material, it always goes to one of the tabs, but I think that's a bug in the code.
Yeah, no, I just opened job tracker and it opened on part locations whip. And I've just gotten to the habit on going, just automatically kicking back to the header screen. But we were hoping there was, Epicor's answer was, well, don't personalize a form that you've customized. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine and dandy. That doesn't happen. So how would I turn around and on form load, set the focus to this field and this tab?
Do you want to first replicate the issue by quickly just saving and making a personalization layer? See if your tabs go wild.
Let me go ahead and pull this over to the screen with everyone. We're going to have a eMug1 test.
But certainly, I think where you're getting at, Calvin, that could be possibly the workaround in code. You set focus to like the key field.
Yeah, and I think you actually have to set focus. You have to bring the tab forward and then set focus for the
Yep.
control. It's a two-step process.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Bear with training loading here. We'll go ahead and load eMug1. Now, how did you turn around and get it to go to a different form?
So you have a personalization, right?
Not yet.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm trying to find who I'm logged in as, Epicor. I don't have the option to personalize. I can go to customization, I can't personalize.
You want to go to user account maintenance, right? And enable personalization.
I think I need to set the menu. Well, I had personalization ability, but I think I can't have that while I'm in developer mode.
Oh, okay.
So I have to go to opportunity quote entry, set this to the default, which won't let me pick as the default.
Did
When you save through customization, you may have saved it company specific. And the menu is all companies.
Yep, I'm pulling it up here. It just likes to default to my second monitor, not my third monitor. No fair.
Fred, you got to get Calvin more RAM.
That or just a screaming goat.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't want a screaming goat over here. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, save you as number 2. All companies. Maybe I did forget that last time. And I think this is 600 that's running. Darn, I'm going to lose my shortcut to Lori Welch's question later.
And what is the 500 minor version you're on? Just out of curiosity point.
Let me look real quick. $15.
Yeah.
Yeah, personalization disappeared if you're in customization mode or have it turned on developer mode. Okay. Now, what did you personalize? Just moving a grid around or something?
That's the typical, you know, dragging columns in a grid or something like that.
Yeah, we'll move a field. Behind the chat window for the go-to meeting is the control panel. Okay.
Okay, let's open it a few times, see if we can get it to act up.
Okay, it saved the oversized screen I had.
Yep. And then it doesn't take you automatically to the lines tab, right? But if you click on lines, then it would, for example, your text would be the focus. Or header, was it header?
It automatically takes us to what other
Straight to it, correct.
Yeah, it could be to kit details, it could be to tax, it could be.
Yep, and it'll go to kind of like where it was last saved from.
Well, that's what we thought, but there are times that it goes to tabs that we don't use. So I was curious what you were saying about setting the focus.
So, who feels like writing custom code on the fly during the meeting?
Well, I mean, we can do the text box quickly, but I think it's better if send you like an example offline.
Okay, that'd be great.
I think the other one that Fred was saying, you also have to call something called activate sheet, but for that you have to get the code of the panel.
And how many people, based on the comments box, are having the same issue?
Quite a few people.
Okay.
Yeah, about 10 spoke up.
Oh, wow.
So you are not alone on this one.
I was just thinking, so probably happening to everyone, not everyone's actually tested it. So everybody's going to go back right now and say, does that really happen?
It's happened to me too, Melody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it happens. It happens in our Epicor as well. Our quote form opens to the wrong tab. What I would turn around and recommend, if anybody has their case number, go ahead and plug that into the chat or email it over, and we'll send that out to everyone so we can link all the cases together and possibly escalate that to an SCR with Epicor. Or I think it's now a PRB report. Okay, we'll go ahead and launch the code over to you, and then we'll turn around and put that in the meeting notes as well for everyone. But you can turn around and set the tab to have focus, and then set the field to have focus when the form loads, and it will always go to that form with field with a customization layer. And it's only a few lines of code to turn around and initiate that.
Okay,
you will have to look up what the GUID or the unique ID for that tab is, and the unique ID for the control for like the text box or the quote entry button where you want to search for quotes. You'll have to look up what those two GUIDs are in customization mode and then apply that to your set of code. And then that would be the same for any of your forms, Gordy. So whether it's customer track or quote entry, any of them, you're just going to add those 4 lines of code into the load event so that the system goes straight there on opening.
Nope.
Okay. Question number 3 was from Joel Davidson.
I'll unmute Joel. Melody, if you could mute yourself.
Sure.
Joel is unmuted.
Okay, how should the CTP work from the action menu? Well, it's going to pop up this pretty little form, and it's going to show you some dates, and then you're going to run the process, but I don't think you want that how this to be answered. Is that correct, Joel? Did he join in? So there are a few things that have to be set on your order. I don't think you can run a CTB on a part that's a purchase for resale. I'm going to go ahead and pull up any sales order in here. Yeah, we're going to take a look at the order that's sitting here in Epicor. It's closed. Let's try and find an open order. So on my sales order line here, I've got a manufactured part. It's a job type that's set to manufactured. I don't see a revision in here. So that may turn around and cause an issue, but we're going to take a look here when we go to the actions and pull up the capable to promise. It's going to show us the 3 order lines that it's on, the quantities, and the dates that they're needed by. I'm going to try and go ahead and open this here. And the CTP is checked here. So when I turn around and run the calculate on this pretty little window I was talking about opening, it should come back and confirm or show me what days are available. With a projected start date, is this part capable to promise for the date that they're looking for? Are you out there, Joel? Joel, are you there? I see you're unmuted. So when I turn around and run this capable to promise, if I accept this, I can go ahead and say confirm. At least one detail must be selected. Let's come back over here. Why is it not running it for us? Is this the error that you're hitting, Joel? Yeah, it's telling me I don't have a detail. At least one more. Let's make sure we have engineering on this.
Joel says he was not getting any lines to show when clicking CTP from the action menu.
So the line should show up in here.
And Tanner
I
suggests
think I
you
pulled in
need a need by date and a ship by date in order for it to show in that grid that you brought up.
Yeah, and I'm using a part on the fly here, so it's not going to be able to do it.
You're in an Epicor training database?
Yeah, I'm in Epicor training and I'm using a part on the fly. It's not a
Try
real
doing,
part.
for a part number, try 001 MP cons, 001 underscore MP cons. I think that's a
CONS?
manufactured part. Yep.
Nope, that part's on hold.
Darn it.
And I was testing the BAPM with somebody, so that's why it came up with the message Calvin said. So there we go. We'll go ahead and pull this part. Ship by, need by, ship by, need by, firm, got it. Calculated completion date would be today. So this part has a real quick bill of materials behind it, but I can go ahead and say confirm to this and it should allow me to confirm it. Okay, there it goes. So if I like this date, I can say yes, I can confirm, because if I'm proposed to start the job on this date, I'm going to have a completion. I should have these parts off the line at this date. So that may be all that you're missing. Now, it's not going to work like I tried with a part on the fly. Our very first order that we pulled in here, that KLL 678 part, is a part on the fly. There's no engineering behind it. There's no part record to turn around and look at its bill of materials to make sure if the date is even possible. But you do have to have at least a manufactured line, and you have to have the dates in the release to confirm, can this quantity be made by this ship by date?
So no other part settings other than that it's a manufactured part.
Yep, that should be all that's needed. Awesome. Joel, if that went ahead and covered it, and you just said so in chat, I'm going to go ahead and we'll move on to the next one. Marta has a question. When designing new SSRS braking routing rules, I have not played enough with these to be able to answer that. Emailing AR invoices to a customer, she also wants a copy of the PDF saved to the disk, but she wants the file name to include the invoice number. Has anyone tried to dynamically name the file that's created by SSRS brake rule routing to specify the file name that's getting created by the process?
I can check, because I think we might do that.
Well, in the I thought in the email widget they let you actually define the file name, if I remember correctly.
Aaron Hilbert says, yes, you can name the file. I do it with POs being named the PO number.
Yeah, I think you just right click on it and said insert field, and then you select whatever field you want from your table.
Yep, I think that's in the send email widget, where you put the subject and everything, and then you can name the attachment.
Yeah, because we name the attachment when it goes into DocStar. It would be the same, and the same thing when we send it to the customer.
David Olander just said that too. In the attachments, you can just insert the invoice number.
And Iron also has that in there. Is that, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Iron Hilbert?
Tracy's asking, is that only when it's emailing that you can name the file? She hasn't figured out a way to save a copy of it.
But like what we do is we attach it to a DocStar directory, and at that point we name
It goes into DocStar.
Yeah, ours goes into DocStar. So it does two things. It goes to DocStar and it gets emailed at the same time, but it's the same attachment name in the two different widgets.
As long as it's a PDF, if I could get it from DocStar, then.
I mean, if you have DocStar, you can then attach from DocStar to your email as well.
DocStar yet.
And Chris Weininger is saying you can only attach to DocStar, not a file location. So if you're using a file-based document management and not DocStar or APM, that may be where the difference is.
So we have it working in APM, but I want to move it off to the report style APR.
And which version of Epicor are you on?
We are on 10.2.133.
Okay. Because I was going to say, so yeah, there's two ways that I could think of is you either email it also to a generic mailbox that it's not going to customer, it's just a mailbox that gets processed and the attachments get saved with either PowerShell or whatever to a disk. And if I remember correctly, in 700, you can also now attach BPMs to when reports are being processed. So you can also via BPM grab it, but out of the box, there is no widget or anything, and you cannot do custom code to say grab this file and save it. And in the report options, you're just limited to a couple parameters. You cannot like get the PO number or anything. So
right, I saw where you could go to a location, but I have in this day and age, we now have a company doing our collections, and I just need the invoice number to start the file name and
yep.
APM.
But by naming the file for the email attachment.
I hadn't looked at when I'm actually emailing it and then also saving it then. I was looking more right in the report style at the report options, and I was stumped by not being able to name it.
Oh, check that. Otherwise, you could also turn around when you email it to them once you get the file name situated and you email it out, if it doesn't allow writing to the file system, as Chris Weininger was turning around and mentioning, take a look at just setting up an email rule to move it to the folder.
Okay.
Okay, our next one, and sorry I threw this in here. John Myers had a question. How are labor transactions automatically approved? They have an issue where labor transactions with a zero quantity are getting left in the entered status and not approved. This is going to be set up in your site configuration control, John. Go ahead and pull up your site and site configuration control on the time and expense. You can have indirect and production approval logic applied, or you can just say save on submit, and if the approval is going to be required or not. This is where you're going to set this up. And then if you do have approval logic, you would have to take a look in here what's currently set in your configuration. But this would all be handled from your site configuration control screen.
And John, I have seen that bug my current employer and my previous employer. The current one, we didn't really question it much. We just saw a couple of records. We fixed them with an updatable BAQ. At the previous employer, they made a comment that I think the job was closed before it was approved, and somehow it got stuck in the E status instead of A. I don't know if there's an epic or bug out there, or unless they have the configuration wrongly set up. But I've seen, I know what you're talking about. I've seen that happen actually, where the job is complete and it's like, hey, there's one guy still entered. How did we complete a job and we never either approved him or voided his stuff? I don't know.
Moreover, how'd you capture?
Yeah.
How'd you run the capture process?
Yeah. Well, it could be a bug that happens once in a while, or something's not configured correct in the screen.
Okay.
But if you do need that updatable BAQ, I can forward it to Calvin, and it just lets you update that column to A.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can't fix it because it's already captured.
Okay. Our next chump question came in from Michael. And this was on the session today, and I sent this over to Ron, who was doing the financial presentation with me. Ron, are you still on? You got yourself muted out here.
Yep, I am.
Awesome. The question was, using average cost and transferring material from one site to another, how can they add in freight cost? And they said material burden is not helpful since freight percentage is highly variable.
Well, part of the problem that we raise is in a transferring material from one site to another site. At the end of the month, we do our financial statement consolidation. We have to capture that intercompany profit and inventory and eliminate it. Another way I was thinking about this after I sent that note to Calvin, and if the receiving plant could migrate to standard cost, then you could have a transfer variance that you could set up as a almost like a savings account on accrual, and then you'd want to test the validity of the accrual quarterly. And you might need to adjust your percentages or your standard cost up or down a little bit based on your analysis of that accrual.
And Michael says this is just site to site, not company to company.
So site to site, so that would be still within the same company. But when we transfer inventory from one site to another site, if it's not the same cost, because it sounds like on the receiving site, they want to capitalize the freight cost and include it in the cost of the inventory. Then when they do their consolidated financial statement at the end of the month and they add up inventory in site 1 plus inventory in site 2, they need to eliminate that intercompany profit, inter-site profit and inventory on their financial statements. Otherwise, you're overstating your assets.
Does that help, Michael? You're unmuted if you need to.
Yeah. Well, the cost of getting the material from one site to the other does raise the value of the material in the second site. And so we want to reflect that because we price the material to the customer from the second site based upon how much it cost. So if we had a $100 item in site 1 that became a $120 item in site 2, We want to sell it for $240 rather than.
Yeah, so could you issue that part to a job and put that freight bill on the job? So accounts payable, you could add miscellaneous job costs and put that freight on the job. And then you'd receive inventory. So there's more steps in that, but then that would give you a way to capitalize that inbound freight cost and inventory.
We currently handle it manually and do a cost adjustment, but that's kind of clunky to do. I was wondering if there was something I was missing in terms of a more simpler way of enveloping that cost into the received value in the second site.
Opportunity to use standard cost in the second site?
We'd want to stay away from that. One of the reasons that this is metal that we're working with, and pricing is fluctuating extremely.
You could roll your standards every month.
We would literally be wanting to roll them every couple of days, so to speak. And that's how volatile it is.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's good. I think the answer you've answered the question in the sense that we're not missing something obvious.
Yeah. There's no low-hanging fruit that you're missing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Let me take a look here. Our next one is from Chris Moore. Is it possible to set up recurring printing to a client printer in the cloud? Recurring email works, but he's not able to get recurring reports to a printer to work. Any thoughts, guys? Gals? Bring an answer.
I thought I saw a comment somewhere in the help files where Epicor said you can do recurring printer if you have the advanced printer and routing module. But,
and I think you have to have the printer set up.
Yep.
In printer maintenance. If you don't have the printer set, it can't attach it to the routing rule. This is where it's going to, the default location for the printer and the page size and all that information.
Yep.
So I think you have to have the printer set up in here. You can't just set them up in Windows. And as long as the printer's here, you should be able to set that in the print routing rule as to which printer it's going to.
Hey, Rick, feel free to jump on the microphone. I see Rick has been typing. It's probably easier to speak up.
I have this set in my install, like we have a reoccurring report that comes out on our printer, but I think you're right that it needs to be defined in the printer maintenance.
Yep.
But I'm on-prem, so it's not necessarily the exact same situation.
Yeah, so.
And Chris says after the printer setup, you can set up a printer and advanced printing and routing.
Yep.
Okay. And I saw another one from that costing. Scott Williamson threw out a comment out here if they couldn't just do a cost adjustment for the transfers. Depending on how many transfers are, there may be a whole lot of cost adjustments to be doing.
Did you do that cost adjustment with a DMT routine?
Possibly, but how would you amortize the price over? I know with something like landed costs, they could use that to spread it over all the parts.
Yeah, it gets a little messy.
Yeah, you're not using landed costs for plant-to-plant transfers. How about now, Chris? Are you able to unmute and join in?
Yep, there we go. Yeah, that answers the question. I was trying to set it up through just a recurring schedule against the client print option when you're in the report form instead of using a breaking rule. So I'll try the breaking rule and set up that printer, and then hopefully that works.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great. Next question here. Hey, Lori, I knew I'd get to you. Yeah, go ahead and unmute you there, Lori. Is there a way to allow users to select load style theme that wouldn't allow them to access theme maintenance? And I kind of had Epicor set up to go to you. Let me bounce back to it. In the configure editor, inside the Epicor client, there's a configure editor, and I'm going to find out which screen it popped up on right here. On the user tab, we have a style. What style to load? Is that the style that you're running? You need to find out what the different styles are that you have, because the dropdown is only going to show the 3 Epicor defaults, but you can specify the name of the style that you want inside the config, and then that becomes what loads for the client.
I get the client to be able to pick one.
Yeah. You can do the specify name, but I think you have to type it into the config file, like Outlook ISL.
Intolerance.
Because that's going to be up here. It has to be in the style folder.
And Calvin, there's another way as well that they added to Epicor 10. So if you go to your main menu and go to preferences, there will be a tab called theming, and you can, as a user, just change your theme. I don't know where it is on this form. I usually use the modern, but see if you can find it. Preferences. It's kind of where you kind of look up the version info and whatnot.
I think go to more settings.
There
Yep,
you go.
you did.
There you go.
I'm getting there.
Under theming. And you can just select one here, and it'll only apply to yourself.
And then will it save it so that when they go out and back in, it saves?
Yep. It
So
saves.
this applies to the user that's logged in, not the workstation.
Well, that's perfect. That's what I want.
There you go. We had a couple of ways to do this. I'm like, I had pulled the other one up, but for some reason my screen print ended a little bit flat.
So if I go down to the bottom one that says form styling, then when I give them access to that by the user in their user profile, they can also go in and change the theme into theme maintenance, set a default for all the users on the system, and I don't want them to have that.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Because that applies to everybody.
Okay, moving right along here. James Gaffney has a question in. Is there a way to use both fixed and variable scrap in a method? For example, he needs 500 feet of fixed scrap and 10% of running scrap. And they don't want to modify the quantity per parent for the variable. Epicor only lets you pick one or the other, not both. Any suggestions? Okay, I'm hearing crickets out there. Come on, guys.
Could you write a BPM that would be special and do both?
But it's going to be different values for different parts on the job material, I'm going to assume. Is that correct, James? I'm trying to find him in the list to unmute him. There he is. There you go, James.
Yes, that's true. Our bill of materials can be, 10, 20 materials long. What we currently do is just enter the same material twice. We enter the material with our quantity per parent and our percentage scrap. Then we enter it a second time with like a fixed 500 feet for setup scrap. Problem is, of
And
course,
like,
it doubles our BOM, right? Instead of being 10 long, now it's 20 long. And then additionally, now you have to issue the material to all 20 of those, right? And it's, so you end up with quite a mess.
okay, so that's kind of the suggestion that I'd put up there. Put the part on the BOM a second time with a quantity of 0, and then
That's what we do.
specify the scrap percentage, and that's what you're doing. Okay.
That's what we do today, but again, it elongates our bill of material by double. And then secondarily, you now have to issue material to that second bill of material entry you did. I mean, we've been living with it for 4 years now, but I was hoping most print houses probably have this same problem. I was hoping maybe someone of the 300 people on maybe had a better idea than what we've been doing.
Well, I could see doing a custom field that is your percentage. So do your fixed fee, choose one, do your fixed feet or your percentage.
Yep.
Have a custom field for the other. And then you could write a rule that would basically say when that percentage changes to readjust the fixed.
Quantity. Yep.
So it would calculate the fixed for you based on the percentage, and then you're down to one BOM line.
So that's what a couple people have out here for suggestions.
I'm not sure I followed that. Can you say it again?
So on your job material,
Yep,
or on your part bill of material, when you copy the BOM down, have a custom field out there that is your second percentage, and just write a BPM that when the one material gets issued, it creates another record, but does the math using that custom field for its calculation. So if you issue a quantity of 2 and the percentage was 10, or you issue a quantity of 20 and the percentage is 10%, then it's going to issue 2 more pieces.
Would MRP understand that and give me correct demand for purchasing?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, well, I was afraid of that because we thought about that too, and that's what they had. I said, just custom write a field in. Come on, how bad can it be? Well, turns out it is, I guess. That's what we do now is put in 2, but I was hoping someone had a trick.
That would be the only ways I can really think of, and that's why I kind of put the answer in here before the meeting. I'm like, yeah, really drawing a blank on another way to do that, other than having the second item with a different percentage on it.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you. That's what we've been doing, and it looks like we are doing the best we can then.
Okay. If anyone does have a question to these, or comes up with an answer to these, by all means, go ahead and send it over and we'll relay that out to people. Our next Stump the Chump question came from Aaron Hilbert. Project billing, project invoice prep, invoice entry, gets the project billings. Is there any way to modify that invoice that gets created via the project? When it pulls it in from the project, it's not allowing them to modify. And hold on one second, Aaron. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Thanks for the correct pronunciation of your name. Are you out there, Aaron? Is anyone using? Yep, got it.
So I saw a presentation from I'm drawing a blank. What's the annual convention called?
Insights.
Insights. Yeah, I saw one from 2013 or maybe 2016. I don't know. That it was really in depth, and then it says you can delete lines, and I don't know if you used to be able to, or anyways, I couldn't follow that along, but it made me think that maybe we should be able to.
I would think when you run the function to get the project billing from the AR invoice menu, it's just going to pull in the details, but you still have to audit it and verify it.
Exactly. But if you find anything wrong, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and that's not going to be an easy one to set up on the fly here. This may be something we have to take offline. Is there anybody that uses project billings?
Andrew Johnson, but he has the same problem and is looking for the same fix.
And Tanner used to use it, but gave up, and you couldn't back out the invoices. They ended up scrapping it.
No, Epicor released in 600 their advanced project build module. I wonder if that has any additional features.
I know it's going to have the deferred revenue and the revenue amortization that you can turn around and tack onto the projects that was in the highlights, but I don't know if it's going to allow you to turn around and delete a project billing line or modify it without turning around and just putting a second or an additional line on the invoice with the adjustment onto it.
David Olender suggests APM uses claims for invoicing. May want to check that out.
And then Andrew Johnson saying, yeah, you can audit T&M billings and T&M invoice review, but you cannot delete a project billing invoice for your invoice group. Okay, this one may not be one we have an answer to. And if you have a case number, Aaron, we can definitely go ahead and throw this because there are a handful of people that are definitely chiming in on this one.
I don't have a case number.
Okay, Angelo's also saying here, have you tried the negative miscellaneous charge after the billing's created? Or doing the adjustment through a miscellaneous charge?
I mean, I'm sure there are ways we can, work around it, but when we have, hundreds of people with different rates and whatever, there's mistakes that are made, and it's quite common that, there's 2 or 3 people every week that we need to modify. So we're looking for a way to do it kind of in the process and not after.
This may be something I would say, let's definitely get a case created for Epicor and have a few people join in on it. It sounds like it's not you that's sharing this problem. And raise that up the flagpole as a request. They're always looking for ways to improve the product. This seems to be a great one since there are so many people that doing project billing or people that gave up on it because they couldn't do it.
Okay, I'll create a case. Thanks.
Awesome. And Lori, I saw another email come or a chat message come in from Michael Mullaney that turned around and said in the user account maintenance in the lower right, there's a way where you can turn it off and so they can't maintain themes.
Yeah, but in the user account, I can have that off. They should still be able to do it through the one you said about the personalizations or the user can go into their preferences.
Okay.
If I'm on in the user account, that's where I have a problem where they get access to everything. So I can't have it on there.
Okay.
Because then they can maintain them, flag it as a default, and everybody in the company. Which is what I did to everybody on purpose, but I want them to be able to do their own for test environments and stuff.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Michael. Go ahead and add that in. We have another Bethany has a oh, thanks, Beth. She's saying, hey, yeah, follow what Calvin's doing. Get a case started for this and go ahead and get everybody to chime in. So that's why I turned around. If you can, Aaron, go ahead and just create the case with Epicor that it's an issue. We can go ahead and share the case number throughout the user group and get everybody that's having this issue to join in on that case. Pete Chikes is our next person that turned around and had a question sent in. Main plant creates make to stop jobs, would like to change to make to order. Okay. Are there any changes in Epicor that part the customer that need to be done? Right now, everything is make to stock. We would just need to alter your orders so that they're make to order and the orders are set to manufacturing with a make direct set on the order release tab. This should turn around and take it from inventory and then have a job created that links directly to the order line and release for the quantity and for the item and part that's being requested. So this would really be set up on your order entry screen. Which I have no clue where it opened. Forget Stump the Chump with a question. Stump the Chump with too many monitors. Oops, wrong one. So on the order entry screen, on the order line tab, on the far right-hand side, there's a order line or a job type, I believe. Okay, it looks like order entry doesn't want to load today. I'm making sure it's not behind one of the GoToMeeting panels. Okay, so on the line tab, you're going to have a line type that doesn't show up. It's going to be about right here on the order line. And as long as the line is set to manufacture and the release is set to make direct, you're going to get a job suggestion to link it directly to the order. It's not going to make to inventory anymore. Now, if you don't zero out the min-max inventory, Epicor is still going to follow that as well. So you're going to get suggestions for orders and suggestions for inventory. So the part would have to be modified, and then how you enter the order is going to have to be modified to switch over from the two different models. Any other areas that people can think of that would affect this? Laura is saying non-stock parts would default make to order, non-stock part. So this is again, going back to the part record. Yeah, we'll wait for. So by marking it as a non-stock part, Epicor is then going to turn around and create the jobs for the order. Make sure that your non-stock is also set down on the part as well on the plant layer if you're multi-site, and I think you were, Pete. Other things in the process, the sales order would change. Scheduling really wouldn't affect because it's just going to be pulling its demand record from the order. There is no job receipt to manufacturing. When you make a job direct for a sales order, you ship from the job. It doesn't go to inventory. You ship directly to the customer from the job. Job closing would still be the same. Job completion would still be the same. Anybody have any other feedback on that? Yep.
He may want to use auto-consume stock if he wants to keep inventory on hand and have MRP look at that and do make direct.
So over here on the planning, tell it to consume the stock that's out there before making jobs for the sales order because you want inventory to get run out. Any other ideas? Dave Olander is saying non-stock might hide the part from MRP. I would just turn the process MRP off if you want to create those jobs manually, or leave it on. If you turn off the non-stock, does that hide it from MRP? I would say definitely go in and test that. Scott Williamson is saying here, manufacturing variance may result if the job has a last operation not completed, if it's shipped before that opera is completed. Okay, and Chris Moore is saying that the non-stock doesn't hide it from MRP. And Scott Lepley's asking if you're using the order to job wizard or letting MRP create the job, because you can create the job either way for the sales order. Are you out there, Pete? You're unmuted,
yeah,
Pete.
Here I am. Yeah, I'm here now. Well, I mean, MRP, we need to get that better. So no, we're really not doing too many jobs from MRP. And of course, we're make to order right now. I mean, we're make to stock. So jobs are not being created through the job wizard because of that. So basically, most of our orders, if not all of them, are pretty much make to order. But the process has always been to take the stock into inventory, but the stock is really into a shipping, and then it's shipped soon after that. So we're pretty much a make to order site, but when they either tried it when they first went to Epicor before my time and even had discussions, they've always not done it. We have another smaller site that only makes a couple parts that really only has one person kind of doing the quote to shipping part. Finance is still handled at the main level, but they're doing make to order fine. So I'm just trying to make sure what to look out for to see if there are any settings. Non-stock was brought up. It's unclear to me. Is that required, or is really the only thing required the 2 fields you mentioned?
Really, the 2 fields should all the, hold on 1 second, go to meeting, just decide to merge all these panels together. Really what's going to hit it is your non-stock, zeroing out your inventory settings, and then updating the order settings so that it's make direct for the sales order.
This is Chris. I believe if you have non-stock checked on the part plan, it defaults into the sales order as make direct. And if you don't have it checked, it will default make to stock.
But we could still check the make direct and go from there. Is what I've heard.
Yep.
And then the other thing that's unclear to me is that may be is again the job receipt, because a lot of times there are a number of jobs where the receipt line might be 100 or 500 or whatever, and they're really shipping in quantities of 20 or 30 or whatever, and when they have that much and whatnot, they ship it out. So how would shipping grab the 20 or 30 off the job when they're still making the other, let's just say 170 in this case?
They would just do a partial shipment against it as the parts were completed, because if the parts aren't completed on the job, you can't ship them. They'll get an error on the customer shipment entry screen.
And I guess this lot numbers and serial numbers specifically is more, I guess, what I'm trying to get around.
And that would still be tracked on the job. So if you're doing a lot track part or a serial track part, you still have to have those serial numbers assigned on the job before you can ship them.
But how, is there an easy way to get the serial numbers over to shipping so they don't necessarily have to search through all 100? They just have to search through either the 30 that are available or
now in customer shipment entry, when they're creating the shipment and it's a serial track part, the serial number button will highlight. They need to click that, hit the retrieve button, and see all the serial numbers that are available to be shipped. If they haven't been produced on the job, they won't show as available to ship.
How is the I guess I'm trying to understand how is it determined that's been produced?
When the last operation is marked as complete and it's a serial track part, they should have to select the serial numbers or create the serial numbers at that point.
Serial numbers created
generally. You step them on the first operation, or when the job's released, you're assigning the serial numbers to the job.
When the job is released, the serial numbers are created for the job.
Awesome. So the person at the last operation would select which serial numbers were created.
And that's fine. Let's say that happens 50% of the time.
They would have to select it 100% of the time. Epicor shouldn't let the item go into inventory if it's a serial tracked part.
Oh, Epicor has don't get me started on serial numbers in Epicor. have a ticket that's a bug and they have not created a problem, and this was identified 2 months or 3 months ago now. I don't know what's going on over there. I literally gave them the steps of you put something in inventory, things increase the serial number, but then you go back to the job and someone can go into an issue and type in that number manually because they didn't put in their labor and they're doing it now, and they can manually type that in. It takes the serial number from inventory back onto the job, but doesn't reduce the number in either place, inventory or job. So the job showed that it sent one to inventory, and the inventory showed it still has one, but there's not enough serial numbers now. And then you go, and then now it's back on the job. You can reissue that, which is now a second time. So that one serial number has produced 2 parts, quantity-wise. And they have not created a problem for that. I don't understand what's going on with that. But there are far more problems beyond that. All right, so I guess the key is we're going to have to get them to follow specifically what's going on in order for it to show up in shipping. You're saying that last part, the last step has to be marked as completed for quantity.
Yep.
At any point, even to ship the whole, let's say it was 100 pieces, no lot, no serial, that last step has to be marked completed with quantity of 100. And then they'll be able to ship from the job of quantity 100. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Sabrina, how did you guys, Sabrina had the same problem she's mentioning at another company she worked at using 10-300. Did you guys come up with a workaround for that? I went ahead and unmuted you, Sabrina.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, we had that issue at Drillquip, and I'm trying to think of exactly how we overcame it. I was trying to see if I had any notes handy. And a lot of it had to do, as you were mentioning, with a timing of labor reporting. I don't know if they ever overcame it before I left. But yeah, I was just saying that you're not alone in having experienced this.
Experienced what's the serial number issue, or just trying to switch over to make to order?
The serial number issue in particular, sorry.
Oh, there are far more serial numbers. I just happen to have that very specific one that I have reproduced.
Yeah.
Sent to them, and they haven't done it. Now I beat them up about this, and they unfortunately just could not figure it out. But I've had it where serial numbers become unassigned, it seems, randomly.
Yes, we had a similar issue as well. We had an issue where, forgive me, it's been 18 months since I've worked with this entity. I believe that what happened was that they would get serial numbers stuck in 2 places. So it would show as both on the job and in inventory. And that sounds like what you were describing as well, correct?
No, the serial number would not be stuck in 2 places. The serial number, what you did a job receipt to inventory, which is in inventory now, and then someone goes back on the job that's open and starts putting in their time because they didn't do it before that, and or they took the part. Really what they're doing is they're taking the part. It's already been completed, but they just rushed the part through. It's been completed, tested, and everything. It's ready to ship, and they need that one part or there's several parts to ship with. So they, without finishing the rest of the steps, they just literally job receipt those. And then the person comes in because they just did it, but he didn't end his time or whatever it was, and then he enters the part, and then that serial number, just the serial number, the quantity stays there, comes back to the job, adds basically more quantity because the job receipt still shows one more produced, and then they have to job receipt it again.
No, maybe it's a different issue than, but the issue that we were experiencing over there was that there would be one serial number that was in inventory, and it would get stuck on the job, and you couldn't move it, and it had to do with labor entry, if I recall. Again, it's been 18 months, but I was just chiming in that we had something similar going on. If it's not the same, then
no. It doesn't sound exactly the same. And of course, the other one that we've had, which I've been able to narrow down, from happening too often, but it still happens, is it says that you do not have enough serial numbers on the job. Hey, you made 10, but you only have one serial number, we can't close this job. And there's a data fix for that they have, but it's just, that's real interesting. Even though everywhere you look, it shows that 10, the records being there and everything. Yeah.
I also like Scott Williamson's idea of, hey, add the cost to the job. Unfortunately, after the job shipped, don't have the guy go back in and do it. After you report that part is done and the serial number went to inventory, you can't pull it back onto the job because there's a bug in Epicor that's going to turn around and cause that scenario. That may be, hey, you can't re-report labor you already marked as complete type thing.
I don't think the part was necessarily marked as complete either, though. They job receipted it without the last dip. It might have happened also with jobs that were complete. The way I had them reproduce it was not marking that last job with complete. But yeah, back to this is the job receipting. I'm a little more worried about the closing and shipping's not able to ship it, but they want to close the job, whether it's for financial reasons or some other reporting because it is off. So I didn't know if there was a way, because I assume you can't close the job until it's truly shipped. So that's why I was asking about job receipt.
Okay.
I didn't know so you're saying that if you have a make to order job, you cannot job receipt it to inventory or maybe even an in-between, which is probably considered at all.
Because when you set it up as a make to order, you're shipping for that sales order. It's not going through the inventory system.
Well, if that's true, I need to test that. If that's true, then their documentation is wrong. Actually, I'm pretty sure I read their documentation where it says it doesn't matter where you send it. If you ship it direct from the job or you job receipt it to inventory, it doesn't matter, I'm pretty sure. I have to go find that.
Bethany is saying you can make to order. You just can't take it to you can take it to inventory, but you shouldn't.
Is there a reason for that?
Oh, Bethany, I have unmuted you. Hop on in. Are you there? Bethany, are you there?
She might need to unmute.
I was just trying to unmute myself. I couldn't figure out where the button was. What kind of IT person am I? So with make to order, you can take your parts to stock and you can ship them from stock. It's just not a recommended method, because what's going to happen is if you don't ship them right away, if you take them to inventory and leave them there, your sales order that's out there, if MRP runs in the meantime, okay, so even if it's overnight, so if you take them to stock today, but you're not shipping them till tomorrow, when MRP runs tonight, it's going to create a whole new job for that, because it's going to say, oh, where's my make to order? It's not on the job anymore. It's not going to look to inventory to find those parts. So now you're going to be making multiple parts that you don't need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's more an MRP issue than anything else. Okay.
It's a huge MRP issue, and you're going to totally muck up your system if you do that.
Yeah, it's going to want more material parts and jobs and scheduling, and yeah.
Exactly, because it's going to tell your buyers to buy more material. You're going to inflate inventory hugely. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of things you're going to do, and then say what happened. So you really don't want to do that. You can do it. It's not recommended to do it that way.
Now, Chris is saying if auto consume stock is not on, it would do that. but otherwise it should consume the stock first.
Well, you've got to look at your demands there. And if your demand, your sales order demand is make to order, it's going to look for it from the job that was linked to the sales order.
Right, and Scott Williamson is also adding in here, accounting is going to be affected also because your WIP going from inventory and your receipt to inventory, but it ships, it should show cost of sales.
Yeah, it's going to play with your ledger numbers
Finance.
there, your financial numbers there, but it will wash it out, but it's going to look kind of weird. So it's not a recommended method to do that. You know, it's okay if it's a mistake once or twice, but if you're doing it on a regular basis, you're going to have a whole bunch of people up in arms.
No, that's why I'm trying to, the documentation doesn't go that deep, and that's those are some of the things that I'm trying to identify to make sure we don't run into. So thank you so much.
No problem. This is a lesson learned. I mean, I've lived it, so it's not pretty.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other reasons they haven't, but yeah, I'm starting to see maybe why they might have held off on it, but and whatnot, because I thought there had to have been either process changes or whatnot. So this is very good. Thank you, everyone.
No problem.
Awesome. Let me see here, trying to scroll down through this chat list because it has been overly active, which is a good thing, but I've lost track of where we were. I think Pete was the last. Nope. I've got Chris Moore in here. How does initialized last cycle count work to spread ABCs out throughout the year? Having trouble getting Cs to populate into counts since they're counted annually. Can the DMT be used to blank out these dates to get this to function correctly? Graham, are you still out there?
Sorry, were you asking for me? Graham.
Our Stump the Chump question here. How does initialized last cycle count work to spread A, Bs, and Cs out throughout the year? Chris Moore is having trouble getting his Cs to populate into counts since they're counted annually.
Well, the first step that you need to do is, well, you have to clear out your last cycle count date, and then you do your initialization.
So you're running that function to initialize the cycle count date.
Yeah. And then that will put a distribution of dates within your part plant table. Then you do your calculate ABC codes, and it will spread out your ABCs throughout the year. If you don't do that, it will try and do all the A's as quickly as possible, and then the B's and the C's, and it's a bit of a mess.
Okay, so I'm wondering if they're not initializing the last cycle count date before running the ABC code generation.
And you can run that, and it looks like it works, but it doesn't. So you either go in SQL and clear out the last cycle count date, which is a bad thing to do, and I should spank myself, or you phone up support and you get the fix. I'm sorry, I forgot the gentleman's name that told me where this was, but there is a fix, and you just run the data fix, and it clears out the last cycle date. And
was that Warren?
Then you run
sorry,
the initialize.
Was that Warren Germscheid?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
That's the proper way of doing it, is to get the data fix, run the data fix to clear out last cycle date, then run the initialize, then do your calculate ABCs. And then when you do your part selection, when you're doing your creating your cycles, then it will distribute your ABCs in each one of the cycles.
Okay, does that answer your question there, Chris? And of course, we have Chris muted. Let's go ahead and pull you back off of there, Chris.
Hey, thank you. So I think it's probably like you're running a conversion through the conversion workbench rather than when you say you're going through SQL, would DMT work to do that, or would you not recommend using DMT either?
You could use the DMT to do that as well and just set the value to nothing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about doing. But yeah, because I've tried doing that initialize with the dates that are in there, and then, yeah, it doesn't work. So it's kind of you have to get some port involved in order to get cycle count to work almost. It's a little frustrating, but yeah. And then when it initializes, how does it determine the last date? Is it the date that the part was loaded? Because we have new sites coming on through DMT, and so I don't know if it's going to use the date that the part was created or how it does that.
I believe it goes in null, and the field is blank when the part gets created. It's not until you run the initialize that it sets the date.
No, I don't think that's true.
Okay.
When you create the part, it actually puts today's date into the part. So
That's
it actually
awesome.
confuses.
So then what, I guess I'll test it in pilot, but I was just curious what will happen when I blank them out and then I do run it. Does it kind of says, okay, you have this many seeds, so I'm going to spread them out throughout the year or something like that?
Yeah, so like what I did is I cleared out that date either through SQL or through the data fix.
Yeah.
Then you run the initialized date, and it will take your. I'm trying to remember. It doesn't take weekends into account. It's not very sophisticated, but it actually distributes. In my presentation, there's a slide where I did a pivot table on what month it put all my parts in.
Okay.
So it spread them out that way.
Okay.
And that's how it did it. Yeah, the last cycle count date. But yeah, it's a read-only field, I think.
But the field's blank on some of the parts in here.
Okay.
Most of them have a date, but I thought that was only until you ran it.
Sorry?
Yeah, if I can get
it blanked out through DMT, I'll just submit a support ticket and have them wipe them for me.
Yeah, DMT would be certainly a nicer way of doing it, true.
Okay. Thank you.
And Rick says if it's blank, it assumes it's never been counted. It will try to include it ASAP. And Eric says DMT won't allow you to blank out the last CC date.
Oh.
Ah.
So it's going to dump all the C's on today's date if I have support blank them out and then reinitialize. It's going to say you need to count all your C's as soon as possible.
Yeah, so the initialize is its way of, I call it priming the pump. There's probably a better term to use, but it tries to distribute all the parts out so that when you do run your cycle counting, you get some A's, some B's, and some C's in each cycle.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, and Eric mentioned he tried to do it also using the DMT, and it says you can't do it. You can't manually adjust it.
Okay, well, all the more reason to get that data fix, I guess. Or use SQL, but I didn't tell you that.
I'm in the cloud, so it's not an option for me.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess data fix for you.
Exactly. So let's see here. Okay, that's the end of the ones that I collected before the session started. Then I've got Andrew Johnson in here. And go ahead and pull this, and we're going to add it to they're about 4 months live, recently being asked to process material returns to a vendor and remove the material costs from the jobs. The material was all processed in the previous ERP system and Epicor has no knowledge of it. planning on dealing with this via job cost adjustment and miscellaneous debit memo. Is there a better way to deal with that? Were the costs part of the job when it was loaded into Epicor? And let me see if I can go ahead and unmute Andrew here. Andrew, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, the costs were not on the job. So the jobs that were in process, we brought in the jobs, but didn't bring in the actual costs that were accrued so far. We kept that data in a separate data set, and we tie it all together with reporting for any of the transition jobs. But in all these cases, the jobs are big enough that the costs that have accrued since we went live is enough that we could make these adjustments and not go negative. So it's still possible to do the cost adjustment. We have kind of a generic material line on the job that holds those costs. So it's kind of a funky situation. I didn't know if there was any ideas that people had out there.
That would be the only way, because if you entered it as a starting job cost amount, and it sounds like your placeholder material was on your jobs, and that's where you adjusted all the material cost onto when you went live.
Yeah.
You would have to adjust it out of there.
Yeah.
And then just do the miscellaneous shipment back to the vendor if you're returning the inventory back to them.
Yeah, and that's what I had in mind.
And so on the GL control for the job adjustment, there's just one account located on the inventory COS and WIP GL control code. So be careful when you process your credit memos that you go back to that same account.
Right.
To the supplier.
Yeah, yeah. So we've informed finance or accounting where that what GL account is going to be hit when we make that adjustment, and so that they'll target that accordingly.
Okay, good.
Okay, thanks for the confirmation. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's why we're here. Now, I know I'm going to step into this, Mark Goldbrandt. What's the coolest thing you've seen or done in Epicor 10 in the last month?
Sorry, who was that directed to?
Mark Goldbrandt is sending that here to the group. It's the Stump the Chump time. So, hey, I guess we're all going to be chumps on this one.
Well, I just did the install for 10.2.700 and wasn't terribly cool, but I did a pool of drool on my keyboard when I saw the ability of doing BPMs across reports and all that. So but I haven't dove into that yet. So that's about the only thing I can say on that question.
Anybody else? If you're considering today as part of that month, I like Brad's demo on some of the kinetic forms and being able to add widgets that go outside, embed Epicor URLs and fields and what they call a no-code environment. While it's not going to handle 100% for everybody, it would handle a good chunk of what people do. And now I'll wait for
I
lightning to strike since I complimented Epicor.
The one thing that struck me on that was the push with Kinetic is doing everything on the server, being web-based, and the work that I've done in the configurator and with other people, a large part of the optimization is do the majority of work on the client. So it'll be interesting to see how we can keep the performance going when now all the work that we thought we were saving all this time on the client has now got to get moved to the server.
I mean, like it was 40 years ago when we were all using mainframes?
Yeah, right. So I did screens in AS400 and you hit enter and update it. And the RPG cycle ran and your screen changed. Or am I dating myself?
I'm not going there. You can't even get the parts on eBay anymore, so hey. Scott Williams has got a question out here. I have a question. I receive a Windows form error that can occur when I run my reports. I've opened a call several times with Epicor. Has anyone seen this error? I received it sporadically. It will force me to close Epicor since the error repeats. What version are you running out there, Scott? Wow. I was just asking what version, not a copy of the error, but I'll go ahead and share that with the world. Busy little chat window. Let's go ahead and push this out for everyone. Hasso or Fred, have either of you seen this?
How is he? Is that like an automated printing, or is he just hitting like print preview or printing?
Hey, Scott, you're unmuted if you just want to go ahead. And you said print preview, he's running 10.1.400. 10.1.400.
Hey, yeah, I've opened this error quite a few times. It seemed to happen after I upgraded my laptop from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Basically, it doesn't matter which form I do print preview on, it will have an error that just repeats Windows form, Windows forms, Windows forms. So I've done everything that they requested of me except delete all of my personalizations on the on my user. They posted some generic information on the call that asked me to what was it? Clear the cache on the client, delete all personalizations on the system. I'm trying to think of the other things they asked me to do. It was very generic. I went through it with another consultant just lately. He had looked at it. We looked at the app data, done some tests on that. Nothing seemed to have worked. I went short of reformatting this laptop and reinstalling everything from scratch on it. So that's so far what I've tried.
Now,
Yeah,
is it
nothing.
only on one workstation or is it happening on multiples?
Yeah.
Just one.
No,
And if
I'm
you
not.
log it,
Go ahead.
if you log into a different workstation as the same user that was having the problem on the first workstation, do you still have the same problem?
It doesn't happen.
And I'd say it's something that's on the client. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
The
purge
issue-
out the 808 folder?
Yeah, I've renamed my own user directory. Took a look at some deeper phases with a consultant. We couldn't find anything on the client side that would do it. The issue is it's not repeatable. You can sometimes I could work for a week and not see the error, and then I could see it every time I sign into it. Which
what Eric is saying, reinstall Windows. Eric Adley from Rockland Manufacturing is saying, hey, go ahead and reinstall Windows.
Scott, does your computer ever go to hibernation before this happens? Because we see that sometimes where we've had laptops or PCs go to hibernation, which then tends to disconnect the system monitor, and then sometimes gives our users different kinds of errors for reporting.
So what did you do to fix that error?
We've set the hibernation on our PCs to 8 hours, so at least they can work the whole day.
Okay. I'll give that a try and see. The other issue we've had with the HP brand laptops, which we run, is that the Wi-Fi chip seems to have issues with staying connected to Wi-Fi. So.
And that would be the same thing with the system monitor disconnecting.
Yep, that will be, we see that too.
Okay. No, that's good. Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, and what I see from that error, it's basically, I don't know if you know, in the system monitor, you have the reports tab. So when you print something, it should go in there. And eventually that gets purged, right, by the server. And then when you disconnect and let's say you come back 5 minutes later, it might have been purged, but your system task manager wants to update the column to see, is this still processing? Is this complete? Is this, in state of error? But it's been purged. So when it does the get, it basically finds nothing, and like it finds a null status. So it sounds like it has to do with either hibernation and you come back, or losing connection and Epicor in the interim purges the row.
Yeah, or you could also check your power saving or your power settings. If it's shutting down the network card, if there was no traffic, is Windows saving power by disabling it?
Okay, because I have been directly plugged into the server, not just remotely working. So I get it both places, and with it directly connected, I would have never thought I'd receive an error that has to do with disconnection, but maybe it's the power settings like you're saying, or hibernation. So okay, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay, we got another question here from Sharon. Sharon P here. Is there an additional license for Advanced Project? Yes, there is. The Advanced Project is a separate module, and that would go through your CAM if you're looking to inquire about that, Sharon. Okay, Matt Parmley here. We are on 10.2.400. We were looking at upgrading to 600. Should we just go to 700 instead? They're currently at .4. If your go live date, Matt, is fairly soon, like you're looking to go live within a month, I don't know if I would trust that for being, hey, this is awesome, it's ready for prime time. They're currently on .4. Normally I'll see people turn around and upgrade around .8 or greater as it's been tested. So if you're able to wait a few months before your go live, I would say, yeah, then take a look at going to the 700. There's not that many changes. You're going to see a lot more kinetic in the new 700. But as far as infrastructure and changes, the testing you've already done in 6 is going to cover most of those. Sorry, wrong time to get the hiccups. Okay. Thanks, Aaron. I got your case number here. I'll go ahead and add that to the minutes of the meeting so anybody that's having that issue can go ahead and jump on that with you guys. Scott, we hit that earlier, the cost being added after it ships. And Pete has a question here. Non-conformance costs are way off. That happens multiple times a month on different parts. Example, a non-conformance cost for one part should be $10, but comes in at $450 or $2,000. Has this happened to anybody else?
Can you repeat that one more time? Or is it?
I know, I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Let me go ahead and copy this to the screen. So, is everyone able to go ahead and see that? Non-conformance costs are way off, and it happens multiple times a month for different parts. That I haven't heard from anyone. Ron, have you heard about this one?
I have not. There's a checkbox at company config about dealing with RMAs and getting the invoice cost. I wonder if that's that setting that would help take some of this out of their it's one of the modules.
What? Go ahead.
Production. And then QA.
I would just see moving the cost to DMR.
Yeah.
But this is a non-conformance. Pete, are you still out there?
Let's go over to the materials tab.
Yeah, so I've used the word nonconformance because when I seem to use the word scrap, people say, well, you should be doing nonconformance, and that's what we do. So we nonconform it off of the job that goes to inspection processing. Inspection processing checks move costs to DMR and rejects it to create a DMR basically. And then DMR, they go in and reject it. And of course, at that point, once you reject the DMR, that's when the costs are officially moved. Or maybe they do the move cost to DMR at the DMR level. I can't remember. I'm forgetting right now there, but this has been an issue since I've joined when they're in 10.0.700. Same problem has been in 10.2.400, and now we're at 10.2.600. And they're still running into this. In fact, it almost seems to be expanding.
And what's your costing method over there? Average?
Manufactured parts are for the most part. At the company level,
what was that? You broke up there.
At the part level for manufactured parts, it is a standard. At the company level, company config level, it is average. And materials are average. So, but yeah, at the costing method on the company level is as average.
That company config or the costing method at company config level is primarily used for new parts that have default to that. That
Yeah.
can be changed.
Right. So that's what parts are going to get set as when they pull in. It's going to follow this costing method.
But when you go to the part level, they have costing method there.
Exactly. But when you hit new part, it should pull this in. Are they
Yeah.
overriding and changing it to average?
In our material, we're set to average on that level. Material is mostly average, and manufacturing, I'm pretty sure is mostly standard. Definitely the one I've gone and looked at.
Is the cost method on the part master and on the site tab the same?
The couple that I've gone and checked, yes.
Making sure that the site cost method matches what's up here.
Yes.
On the part record.
Yeah.
The couple that I've looked at, yes, I've definitely looked at both of those. I cannot say I've done it for every part.
Well, that's the problem.
What do you mean that's the problem? Oh, you're
just
saying
pulling your leg. Yeah.
Well, I'd love that. Hey, idiot, look here, and boom, we have it fixed, because that would be great. I'm having the value stream managers and of course finance complaining about this and everything, because it's putting obviously costs way off.
Yeah.
I would. All of these are non-conformances coming from jobs?
Yes.
How is your job reporting? Because I've seen this in an average cost environment. It's usually they issued a block of material and maybe a piece of a block, but they haven't done the return of the material yet, or they haven't reported the quantities correct. So when they actually non-conform something, it can't figure out what they finished and what they didn't finish. And so it does its best guess at what the cost is.
That's what I would think. This is going to be related to
that's way off. I look at the job, and the job was way off. It was they didn't report it in a timely manner or accurately.
But would that put it? Would that put the I think this happened early on. This has also happened at the end of the process as well, of the manufacturing. But wouldn't job costs also be off?
Correct.
But the job costs are normal. It's just the scrap, basically. Again, what they relay on scrap, but I'm calling it non-conformance because that's what needs to be relayed on, because there is a scrap selection, which does.
And what gets pulled off the job is gonna pulled off the job to DMR. But what's left on the job is just the delta of the total cost from that. So that if one's way off, the other's way off. Unless your finished good is standard costed, and then you'd have a manufacturing variance.
Finished goods, which as well as calling manufactured, is the finished good part. The manufactured part is standard. So that part that they're manufacturing is standard. And again, right now we are make to stock. But the material parts, most of them, I'm sure I found a few, but I'm see if it related to these. I'm pretty sure I did a query and it did not, but are average. So they try to have the purchase part as average and the manufactured parts as standard.
But if the average isn't correct on the material item when the non-conformance is done, it should be pulling the average from the material track.
But you could do
crediting that to the job and then moving it from the job off.
a lot of, we were thinking this might be related to job splits a little bit, but this is, starting to occur more, more often, and even did back then occur occasionally for non-job split jobs. But so for the job split jobs, you would they kind of do them back to back, and so one would go through and have the major problem, and another would go through with scrap, and that would be completely fine, no issues.
When you split a job or when you create a non-conformance on a running job, it does an allocation of the costs based on the reporting to date. And if your reporting is not timely or accurate, or the split was done and you've got fixed quantities and you've split off the job, you require that split quantity in both jobs then. I mean, that fixed quantity on both jobs. So there are some other issues that can come into the job costing piece of that.
I agree with you, but if we're not issuing fixed quantity when job splitting, after you do split it, the one where the fixed quantity wasn't reissued, for instance, to complete it, you would have a lower cost, right? Not higher. This is like significantly higher costs. At the same time, we're not talking about like a few bucks or a couple percent. We're talking.
Do you need to overissue material like in blocks and then have part of it returned?
I don't think they overissue material.
Yes, we'll issue the entire block because it has to be cut. We issue 6 inches to the job and there's very expensive block material. Then they have a non-conformance before they return the 4 inches that they're supposed to return. And that will cause a huge cost to the non-conformance.
Yeah, I don't think they overissue to have stuff, but yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, that's something I'll definitely look into. So, but yeah, like I said, it's happened early and also late. Towards the end or towards the beginning of the actual process of manufacturing. So, it's been a head scratcher here among everybody, and we've just unfortunately I opened a year and a half ago, opened a ticket and really really dug deep into it with Epicor when we're on 10.0700, and brought in a guy that had been in several positions, but was the value stream manager at the time, at the same time, and had discussions, and it basically couldn't find it. So I guess we're stumping the chumps here.
Yeah, well, I spent a lot of time in there. We're on 10.1600 right now, and job costings, but that's it. I mean, the anomalies that I have found have really been related to how we report. Like, we'll send all the units out to subcontract, then you non-conform 10 of them, then the receipt comes back to the original job. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are timing based that calculation.
Also, running that WIP inventory, running the cost capture, getting the dollars correctly on the job before doing the transaction to back it out is also going to impede this, because if you don't have the cost properly captured on the job at the time you run the non-conformance or the scrap, I've seen that affect the cost at the time of the transaction. But it was explainable. I mean, we took that to Epicor tech support, and Jody Brown was the one that we had worked with, and yeah, we were able to make sense of it. It was a nightmare to go back and recalculate back to zero when the average cost was correct to figure out the math, but it still made sense. But really was tied down to the timing of when the event took place. If the jobs aren't correctly costed or don't have the costs on them right, when the transaction goes off to scrap, that can also impede it.
Yeah, but I mean, would it impede it by, like, if it's supposed to be $10, is it going to be
It depends. But if you had a vendor that expedited you one piece, the average cost was set wrong at the time the scrap transaction took place, because that's not the cost that would have been on there at the time the scrap occurred on the job.
Yeah.
But it's going to go out and look at whatever it has if that capture process hasn't been run or those costs weren't rolled into it correctly with average costing. I'm going to say, I'm not going to say it's part of the job splitting, but I know job splitting is also dangerous if you don't have the costs on the job correctly at the time you do the split. I'll see people sit and calculate the job costs from the production detail reports and then do a job adjustment onto those after they do the split to get the right dollars in each bucket for each job.
The splitting for us is always at the beginning.
Before the job is started.
Before the job is started, but after the material has been issued, mostly.
That's potentially dangerous also, because you need to make sure the costs have been captured onto that job before you do the split.
So when you
Otherwise,
do
it's going
to, yeah, when you do a job split, even if you haven't manufactured, if you have material issued to that, all that cost, that material is going to go to the first job, not the second job. That
Correct.
does happen. You will see that. Check your job splitting and take a look at that. There's a lot of little intricacies there that happen. We've been caught.
But again, that would be the case every time, and I do think it does. I could be wrong, but you guys have probably been at this longer. But I'm pretty sure I saw someplace that when you job split, it splits the cost too.
Not always.
Not always. Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
you need to
based
be
on
really
what's
careful with job splits, because the job you split off takes what it needs as the priority and just leaves the residue behind.
Yeah. So what they basically do is there might be a PO for, or on the order, not the PO, but the order might be, the line might be for 100. And what they have decided that is inventory has decided it's much easier to issue the all 100 instead of doing the issuing 10 times, basically breaking out to 10 jobs of 10. So they'll issue the material, and then to manufacture, it's far easier to do batches of 10 instead of 100. So they'll split that job now 9 more times and keep the original. So that's 10 jobs. And then at some point in the future, it could be the next day, it could be a week or so later, they'll start manufacturing that job.
Why aren't they using the lot sizing multiples then?
Yeah.
If that job should only be for 10, you would set the multiple up as 10. So that Epicor would automatically create you 10 jobs of 10. Then there's no splitting needed.
Right. When we've done job splits, and this is why we don't do it anymore, when they do job splits, if the material has been issued and then the job is split, you need to return material for the remaining parts that you've split off and issue to that new job. It doesn't automatically do that for you.
Correct. And to the same problem that Hasso talked about earlier, if the labor is marked as entered but not approved, the labor cost may not be on the job when that split occurred.
That's correct.
What did you say about the material, just out of curiosity?
So with the material, if you've issued it all up front to your first job, and then say you split off 90 parts to another job, you need to return enough material from the first job for 90 parts and issue it to that second job. It doesn't.
No, it should do that. It does that.
Job split does that.
Job split it will take what it needs for what you split off. If you have a job for 100 and you've issued 50 pieces to the job and you split off 10, it will take 10 of the 50 and leave the residue behind.
Correct. Except fixed
You have
parts.
to make sure that the job you split off is the one you're expediting, the one you're trying to move forward, because that's going to take everything it can for itself.
Yeah. So yeah, the fixed parts, they'll take everything, not just the not just what they have in there. So if it's checked fixed part, I believe the split job will take it all. So if you know there's a fixed part of 1, and you put 10 of those on the first job before you split it, and then you split it, I'm pretty sure it goes to the split job, the 10, all 10 of those.
Yes. Fixed quantities, yes. But in any case, if you split off 10 and there was 10 to be taken, it will take the 10.
Correct. Calvin, your question, yeah, we have a lot. There's a lot that could be done to be able to optimize. We have, when I first started, they were kind of using MRP, but it was a complete mess. So they've actually gone down to most parts are unchecked to process MRP, just because they didn't. Certain people at the time they had recently hired a scheduler did not necessarily go and learn the system to do it. They chose to do it manually. So I agree that right there would be the best place in order to allow MRP to make those suggestions and have that be done, or maybe the job wizard would do it too. And probably also, I'm also guessing some of the boos and bombs could be set up better to be able to be optimized as well, but the bare minimum is in. So yes, there are a number of issues that could be optimized to take care of advantage of a lot of stuff like that. But I'm not so sure a lot of it has to deal with costing at this point. I could be wrong.
We had, by having a mixed mode of standard and average, that's going to be a fun one, but at least the parts that are going in an average should still have the right averages. It's just trying to get it to calculate correctly and make sure the costs are on the bottom when they do the split to get it directed to the right parts. But also when the transaction goes off to quality, you got to make sure the costs were on the job before you can even send it off to the move DMR costs.
So when you issue material, does it not issue the cost, or do you have to do something else to issue those costs?
Depends on how the material gets issued. I haven't seen Epicor where if you go into inventory management, go to general operations, issue material, seems to always move the material. I've not been able to find which modules don't move it correctly, whether it's handheld, whether it's MES, or how the user is getting the material onto there, if it's backflush, but the parts do not always show up on there, and that's why you have to run that WIP inventory report and run the capture process.
But again, is what you're saying is material cost does not necessarily go on the job. So if you get a nonconformance before you realize it and get the cost on the job, the part would be lower, not higher significantly.
Correct.
So, that's where it's we thought it was split jobs, but there was those occasional, and now we've gotten a few more, seems to be possibly expanding to potentially, and it is not every time. You'll have the parts that are completely fine, and then you'll have these situations that just pop up with this. So I say multiple times a month. It does happen probably multiple times a month, but
I haven't run across where this doesn't have a smoking gun to the issue. I would escalate the ticket with Epicor if need be. I mean, they can definitely pull the part cost table and look at every average transaction, look at the part tran history, where the parts came in and where the cost got updated, as well as the job history, and come up with a reason for you. Jody Brown worked with us and we were able to figure it out. It took us about a month and a half, but we were able to finally come up with a logical explanation why the costs were off, and it was with average costing. In the worst case, I can put you in touch with the client there up in Wisconsin that had the issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to see if anybody, but yeah, that'd be good. And yes, we're probably working on trying to get a ticket open as well. Someone, we were talking with someone from Epicor, and she wanted to take a look before we open the ticket, and so we've just been missing each other since then.
I would probably say Jody, Lee Korberg. Any other ones, guys? You suggest? I'm just thinking of the people that are really, really good at this. Jane Adams would be really good also. Okay, do we have any more chump questions in here? Thanks, Eric. Reinstalling Windows. Again, Sharon's mentioning related DMR could be the average cost issue, exactly. Labor costs going into it. Part type and cost method, making sure they're the same. Okay, it looks like we've hit all of our Stump the Chump questions. I'm going to scroll down my Word document to make you, I'm at the end of the document. I can go ahead and get you in touch with them, Pete, and she'd have a better handle, but they go through the nightmare also. They DMR their parts at month end when the vendor sends the trucks to come pick up the castings. They don't send them every day. So they also have a drawback with timing. The job could have been finished back on the 5th of the month, but the vendor didn't pick up the DMR parts until the 30th of the month.
I looked into that. I've written several different queries to try to pull out everything that seems abnormal and compare. Some are day of, that next day. Some, are maybe multiple days or a week or so later. But yeah, again, no smoking gun there either.
Okay, Aaron, I'll go ahead and include your case number that you forwarded over to me for this project billing issue. If anybody is also experiencing that with project billing, please go ahead and contact Epicor and kind of jump onto that case with Aaron. Any others in here? Nope. I think the rest of these were for Amy Melton from this morning, and a couple left over for Jordan. I think we got it.
I'll email those so that we get answers, so that we can include those in the minutes. And anybody who's still on, please remember to fill out your survey, because that helps us figure out how to do the future meetings.
Also, if you have any requests for topics, that's in the survey also, Fred.
Yes, there's a short answer at the end, I believe, that says what can we improve or what topics. I think both questions are in there.
Yep, and we'll shoot for the February. We already have one suggestion requested, so 1 out of 7 ain't bad. Christine, any feedback? Beth?
Beth left already.
Okay. Mark, how are you doing up there?
Did you ask me? Did I miss it?
Yep. Yep. How's it going? Heather? Oh, nope. She just turned around and left.
The survey, Tim, you asked, I believe when you close out the meeting, it will pop up, or else you'll get an email either when we close the meeting out or tomorrow morning. I believe it will get emailed to you, and you can come to the website, fill it out. It's a bunch of rank the presenter, rank the meeting, and then the short answers for what would you like to see, what can we do to improve. So we tried to make it very short and simple.
But we definitely appreciate everyone's feedback, because that's how we can continue to make the meetings with the topics that you guys are wanting, not just what we're thinking you want.
Awesome. Well, also as a reminder, we'll include the meeting dates for 2021 that were voted on at the beginning of the meeting. We'll have the links for our sponsors again in the minutes of the meeting. And I believe Christine sent in private chat that she was going to try and also get those videos to us, or at least a link to those videos so that we can put those out for everybody to see the 3 videos that she had samples or examples for the new products. Awesome. Well, I am ready to gobble till a wobble. Turkey Day's around the corner. Awesome. Well, with that, everybody, thanks. Have a safe holidays. And we'll pick this up again next year. Looking forward to, what was that, February 18th. Real easy to remember. It was a Thursday, I thought.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right, talk to you later.
Thank you.